Welcome to this episode of Mission Business, a podcast about good business for those in the business of good, presented by your Part-Time Controller, LLC, also known as YPTC. My name is Jennifer Alleva, the host of Mission Business and managing partner at YPTC. On this episode of Mission Business, I spoke with Kimberly O'Donnell, Vice President of Fundraising and Professional Services at Network for Good. Our conversation covers how the pandemic has dramatically affected how nonprofits fundraise, advancements in fundraising technology such as AI and live streaming, and what's next for Network for Good and the future of fundraising. Network for Good helps small nonprofits cultivate donor relationships and advance their missions with simple, smart fundraising software, personal coaching, and online resources. A mission-driven, certified B Corporation, Network for Good has supported 400,000 plus nonprofit leaders since 2001 and has pioneered the online fundraising space, dispersing over $4 billion in donations to date. And now, my conversation with Kimberly O'Donnell. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to Mission Business Podcast. It's so great to see you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We know each other going back a little ways. YPTC and Network for Good have been working together. Network for Good's a client of ours and also a partner in webinars that we've done together. I love having this opportunity to reach out to your clients, our clients, and the whole nonprofit world in general. It's so great to have you.
Oh, thank you. And, you know, we really rode the wave last year during the pandemic as we did those webinars and around the legislation that was coming out and really how to navigate all of the loan programs and things that were out there. And so I just want to say thank you.
Oh, it was our pleasure.
For being our partner and informing literally thousands and thousands of nonprofits about their options because it meant dollars for them and more support towards their missions in the long run during the pandemic.
Absolutely. It was so necessary. And we were so grateful to have your platform for Network for Good to partner with you and do that. So it was wonderful. So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Kimberly.
Sure. So I've been working in the nonprofit sector for more than 25 years. I have been an executive director of a small nonprofit. I have worked at the third largest charity in the U.S. and then, was at an association as a chief philanthropy officer and have also worked in the tech sector at organizations that were supporting nonprofit fundraising. I also serve as a personal fundraising coach now at Network for Good. I manage our personal fundraising coach program where we have 26 coaches working across the country with more than 1,000 nonprofits, really helping them to focus in on their nonprofit strategy so that they can raise more money from individual donors. And I'm also a certified life or executive coach, which has been a really great experience because I've learned how to be quiet and listen more to others and ask questions that can really help others unlock decisions in terms of what they want to do with their life. And then formerly, for 11 years, I was an adjunct professor at Georgetown and George Mason Universities, where I taught a class on nonprofit management and leadership. So I am passionate about the nonprofit sector and fundraising and just working with small to medium-sized nonprofits to really help them scale the dollars raised so that they can truly make a difference and a greater impact with their mission.
Your passion really does shine through for the nonprofit.
It's a flaw.
I don't know. I feel the same way.
It's a flaw to have this much energy.
I feel the same way about the nonprofit sector, doing so much good for so many, and the connection between all of your fundraising background as well as the technology that you have worked in before too, really must be a great fit at Network for Good. So let's get into a little bit about Network for Good and the technology that they provide to nonprofit organizations.
As a little bit of background, Network for Good has been around since 2001, and we actually pioneered the online fundraising space. And today we have a .org side of the business that partners with groups like Facebook and Google and Patagonia. And then in 2013, we actually spun off a for-profit B Corp, which is the most for-profit nonprofit type of business that you can have. And we created fundraising software that really truly provides simple and smart fundraising software for small to medium-sized nonprofits. So our goal is to provide an all-in-one solution for communications, fundraising, and events so that nonprofits don't have to work harder, they can work smarter, and it can all be in one place synced together. Since the pandemic, we've really been focusing in on the essential technology that's needed to support nonprofits, and also encouraging and educating nonprofits around where the future is going and how they can grab a hold of it, right? And not just ride the wave, but thrive that wave, right?
Yes.
Like really get out there and fundraise more expertly and learn new technology and put themselves in a place where they will be successful post-pandemic.
There's been a lot of innovations around the use of different technologies. I know we have been using electronic bill pay systems, Bill.com for one, with our clients. And we've also had a lot to do with the QuickBooks Online connection with the Network for Good fundraising software. And we can talk a little bit about that more later. But what other innovative technology options have you guys put into place since the pandemic?
So as we stepped into the pandemic, we immediately started offering a ton of webinars and just producing content. Our team of personal fundraising coaches, we're in a unique place with Network for Good because we don't just provide fundraising software, although that's very important. We also have the knowledge and expertise with these fundraising coaches that are working one-on-one with nonprofits to kind of be feet on the ground, listening and learning, and then also having the long, time expertise in fundraising to put it all together and say, oh, okay, what's essential for organizations right now? And so we had a campaign last year around, COVID can't stop good, we said. And we were really promoting lots of different fundraising tips and practices. One of those things was around the use of video. So that really gained a lot of traction. We had recently introduced a tool within our fundraising software where you could do one-on-one videos or group videos. And so our clients were using these videos as a way to thank their donors.
Interesting.
So someone would give like $100 gift or something, and immediately they would receive back a personal, 30-second video where they were able to see the person who received it and, get that thank you note. And what was really interesting about it was just how popular it was and what a connection it brought to those donors and supporters of those organizations. It's really cool if you're a humane shelter, or you are an environmental group or something, and you have a beautiful, background or some animals or something that you can be holding as you're saying thank you. But for every other type of organization, they too could show, hey, this made a difference and we really value your support. What happened then was that there were a number of these donors who were, particularly moved. They had never received anything like this before. So they would either make a second larger gift immediately, or again within 6 months. So we saw it as a wonderful motivator to really spur donor retention and giving and just make that super personal connection that was COVID friendly. And it really has gained hold.
So let's change gears and talk about the research that you and Network for Good, your team at Network for Good, have been doing around fundraising technology. Where do we even start with that?
Great question. As we were rolling through the pandemic, we were going, all right, well, what's next? Because we need to begin to envision what those products look like too. As a software company, we want to be able to be out ahead of others and really building the technology that our nonprofits are going to need to move forward. And so, one, we spoke about video. That was one piece of it. But around the research side, we went and we surveyed the nonprofit sector, and we asked them, hey, what do you think the future of fundraising will look like? How much time do you think that you need to be spending fundraising? And what technology, if we were to give you a couple of different options, what types of technology would you be using and finding essential over the next 3 years? And we had some surprising responses.
Can't wait to hear them.
So let's start with the sector's aptitude for technology, because I think that sort of lays things up really well. We asked the survey participants what best described their adoption of fundraising technology. Are they early adopters? Do they go with the crowd? Or are they super careful? And the results showed that 77% either go with the crowd or are very careful and cautious. And this surprised me because I thought there would be more early adopters. Honestly, I thought that there would be some more folks who would say, yeah, we want to use technology. Sometimes we can't afford it, but we find ways, right? But I think that this is something that is a challenge to our nonprofit sector. We have 1.5 million nonprofits here in the U.S., and if 77% of them, if we were just to say that, if 77% of them said, hey, I either am really careful or I go with the crowd when it comes to technology, I ask you, how will we ever truly solve our country's biggest social problems?
Yeah, it's impossible.
If we're not using technology to do so, and if such a large chunk of the sector are so hesitant to use technology. And we know technology drives innovation and it drives human evolution, right? We see that in the medical space. We see that in banking and business. We know that technology and in personal communications and in consumerism, we know that it drives the future. So I ask the sector, and I'm being provocative here, why can't we as a sector begin to use technology to drive our own evolution in solving our country's biggest problems and really executing on our missions in bigger ways?
Yeah, it's been ingrained in the nonprofit sector for a very long time about the overhead myth and using funds for anything other than programs. In many ways, and being innovative like that has been very challenging for this sector forever. But I believe, and I think perhaps your research has indicated this a little bit, that people are starting to feel a little bit better about using technology. Certainly your Network for Good user group is getting more comfortable with it.
Oh, absolutely. And, we need to have fundraising software out there. People need to be doing that over using Excel spreadsheets. Excel spreadsheets are they're not the wave of the future.
We're not a fan. wait a minute. Let me just back up here. We love Excel spreadsheets at your part-time controller. However, to track your fundraising, not a good thing, nor your accounting. So let's just keep it that way.
Right. It's smart to have software. It's smart to be able to use accounting software. We have our QuickBooks integration with you. And so those are the essentials. And I encourage everyone who doesn't have something like that to truly, dive in and look at that. Another thing that we began to see around technology is we asked folks, all right, well, here are four things. Here are four different types of technology. Which do you think that you would use in the next 3 years? And again, the results to me were shocking. Drum roll, right? Would you, in the next 3 years, use QR metric barcodes? Those barcodes like you do when you're ordering food now at a restaurant, so you don't have to touch menus and things. Would you use artificial intelligence? And this is for fundraising, right? So you would have software and you would have prompts that would, prompt you to engage with different donors and prospects at different times based on their activities and also just, timing. The third one is online gaming or, being part of gaming communities. There are so many people out there who are actually, active gamers. And I think I looked it up and there's like 227 million people in the US play video games. Okay. So would you go to that community and do online fundraising through the gaming? Or would you use a chatbot? Use a chatbot on your website to engage people. So those are the four things. QR metric barcodes, artificial intelligence, online gaming, fundraising, or chatbots. Jennifer, what do you think the answer was?
I'm going to guess the QR code.
Bingo.
Yes.
And
it's easiest,
so let me ask you a question.
Right?
It's the easiest and it's free, right? You could go out and get a barcode and set it up and use it. So that's super easy to set up. What I want to pose, and again, this is me being provocative and putting my coaching hat on. How is that going to transform your fundraising? How is that really going to make a major transformative difference in your nonprofit's fundraising? It's a nice to have, right? Like you can put it in, a solicit. Let's say that you're doing a direct mail piece and you put that QR code on there. Well, then somebody doesn't have to mail back the check, right? They can just go to your donation page and you don't have to send them to, the link where they then have to go try and remember what it is and then go look it up. So it's super easy from a fundraising standpoint to have this available. And I love it as a tool. So don't get me wrong, but that is not going to transform fundraising for nonprofits.
What is your feeling of the biggest transformative technology coming down the pike?
Well, I would say out of the list of four there, artificial intelligence is everywhere, right? We're using it, consumers are using it in every single way. When you go onto Netflix, you're being served up suggestions for shows that you should watch. It's in the bank, it's in every industry. So it's very common and that is transforming, businesses. But again, nonprofits are going, but not us. We don't know what that is really. So we don't know that we want to use it. And it sounds expensive. Now, I would say, and I get that, like we just don't know. But I would also put out there, like when it comes to fundraising through gaming, gaming is big. Huge. It's huge. And I found a report. It was the North American Gaming Almanac report for their 2019-2020 edition. And what they said was that the charitable gaming market in North America is worth approximately $2 billion and is growing at a rate of 3.4%. So your peers, your nonprofit peers out there, some of them have found a way to raise a lot of money through this channel. And there are so many organizations who are like, I don't know what it is. And it just sounds like young people.
Yeah. Do they have any money? Are they going to be able to donate?
Well, their family has it, right? Like if they're a teenager, they either will go to mom or dad or grandma and say, hey, there's this fundraiser happening and, can you contribute? I know Network for Good has some really awesome clients who are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars through this channel. And so it's an option out there that a lot of people are going, but I have older donors, so this doesn't apply to me. And I guess what I would say to that as as I wrap up sort of just this thought around what technologies are out there for the future is we, as a sector, need to understand that that our donors today are not necessarily our donors of tomorrow. And we will begin to lose our share of wallet as we fundraise if we're only fundraising to a certain group of people. I encourage every listener to think about who their future donors are 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, because you have to start nurturing those relationships today. And if you're still only talking to middle-aged and older individuals, then you're missing a tremendous opportunity to educate a younger audience, a very passionate younger audience about your cause, and begin fundraising with them and starting that wonderful donor journey that could last decades if you began engaging them in the right way now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to Mission Business Podcast. My name is Carol Melvin, and I'm a senior manager and leader in YPTC's Washington, D.C. office. YPTC is currently hiring nationwide. We offer a flexible work environment, 35-hour standard work week, perks and incentives, full benefits, as well as full and part-time positions to fit your needs. The best part? You can use your accounting skills for good and directly impact the success of amazing nonprofit organizations. At YPTC, we know that a career is not one size fits all. We are dedicated to a workplace guided by trust, support, education, integrity, equity, community, and strong relationships. YPTC is consistently recognized for its strong and employee-focused culture. Most recently, we appeared on Inc. magazine's Best Places to Work list and ranked second in Accounting Today's Best Accounting Firms to Work For. So what's next? Are you ready to love your job? Apply today on yptc.com or contact careers@yptc.com. We can't wait to meet you.
Part of your survey was regarding fundraising challenges that survey respondents were having, not only now, but in the future. What did they have to say about that?
We gave them 6 different options and asked them to share which ones they thought were going to be the biggest challenges that they would have over the next 3 years. And so here are the 6 answers real quick. Pandemic after effects, changing technology and data. So we've been talking about technology today, so all of the changes that are occurring with it. Rising donor expectations, like they want to be communicated with really fast, or they have demands where they want certain recognition. Spending enough time fundraising, diversity, so DEI, diversity and inclusion challenges, as well as retaining donors. So those are the 6 things. Now, this is an aha for me and my peers, because the first 3 things you cannot control. As a nonprofit executive or a nonprofit person, you can't control the pandemic's aftermath effects.
No.
At all. You can't control changing technology and data. You can, learn more about it and begin using it, but you can't control it. And you can't necessarily control rising donor expectations. That's a reaction that you would have. So those are all reactive things. What's interesting is that the things that they felt that were not challenging are the proactive solutions. Spending time fundraising, focusing on diversity and inclusivity at their organization, and retaining donors. And what the biggest shock to me is that in the US, the average donor retention rate among nonprofits is 43%. And yet nonprofits are telling us that retaining donors isn't as big a challenge as all those other things. And it's within their control. Like, that's something that you can control. Yeah. And yet, I don't think I'm going to do it. And by the way, that's a transformative thing that they can control. Because if you move the needle from 43% up to something much higher, and we at Network for Good have done a ton of research around what we call subscription giving, which is focusing on treating donors like subscribers to your organization. You can ask them if they'd like to subscribe to your organization and give regularly, and then give them content that shows impact. That can move the needle. Worrying about the pandemic's aftermath effects is something that you can't do anything about and will not move the needle on your organization. You can focus on bringing DEI into your organization. You can do that, and that's important. So I found those results really surprising.
What would you tell, very specifically, one of your customers that is receiving coaching from you? What should they do first, second, and third?
One, audit what you're doing from an individual gift standpoint. Two, really think about what technology you're using and how you can work smarter and not harder. Some of the survey data showed that people believed that they needed to spend far more time fundraising in the future. In some cases, 70% more fundraising. But every single group that we looked at said, yes, I need to spend more. Do you need to spend more time, or do you just need to work more wisely and be more proactive in your fundraising, right? And then three, and this is huge when it comes to fundraising, huge, is having the courage to step out of your comfort zone and really fundraise. And I say that in many different ways. People don't like to fundraise.
It's not easy.
I would say probably 90% of people do not feel comfortable fundraising, right, Jennifer? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure you've done a bunch of fundraising yourself. How does it feel?
It's a tough ask, and it's hard.
And that's what I hear all the time. It's hard. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I don't want to ask people for money. I feel like I'm selling something and they're not necessarily getting something in return. Please cast away all of those fears and just realize that when it comes to fundraising, you are a conduit for your organization's mission.
That's right.
Your organization is a conduit for the impact that the donor wants to see in the world, the change that the donor wants to see in the world. So all that you're doing when you are asking somebody to make a contribution is you are inviting them to support your mission. Not your organization, but your mission, the outcome, right? And when you realize that, then you realize, I'm just putting it out there. And also, that donor has the opportunity to say no, and that's totally fine. And that's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you if they say no. But the thing is that they need to be asked, and they need to be asked more than once or twice a year, because we care about causes more than once or twice a year. We just give because those are the only times that we're asked.
Yeah, I think about the opportunity that is lost if the donor isn't asked, because that donor is missing out on something that they really could be contributing to in a meaningful way for them. And really, I think of it when fundraising, it's not really selling when you really believe in the mission of the organization and bringing it and that message to others. And it really feels good to make a difference that way. So yeah, I've done my share of fundraising, but it has to be something that you truly, truly believe in. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are excellent at that and are really proving their passion for their mission while doing it. So what is next in the future for Network for Good, for fundraising?
At Network for Good, we're continuing to look at ways in which we can create new technology that will allow our wonderful small and medium-sized nonprofits to be able to fundraise and engage their donors and supporters in new ways. One of those ways in this past year was by creating a virtual and hybrid events platform. Super cool. And what makes it different from anything else that is out there is that you're able to live stream your event on one page where a person can register or buy tickets or sponsor an event, right? You go to that page and then you're going to come back to that same page, that web page for the event where it's going to be live streamed, and there's a donate button there. And there could even be, the thermometer that shows what the goal is, and there's a chat feature so you're able to engage with others as that event is going, and you can link to an online auction. So So your fundraiser is in one place. And this is really awesome because it can be used even for in-person events or a hybrid event where you want to be able to live stream a portion of the event. And it's wonderful for virtual events. Virtual events are the future. They are not going to go away. And we had some survey data that showed that as well, where we saw that there's just a high number of virtual and hybrid events that are going to occur. And what's great about it was that there are so many other people from different geographic areas who can now support your mission, participate, pop in. It's wonderful for introverts or those who have accessibility issues and maybe can't get to the venue. So there's just, it's the wave of the future. And I encourage organizations to begin to think about how they're going to build that more into their event planning in the future.
Yeah, that is really excellent. Kimberly, it has been such a pleasure having you on Mission Business Podcast. I am psyched to go out and fundraise for my causes, and you really are a motivator. This has been terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was my conversation with Kimberly O'Donnell, Vice President of Fundraising and Professional Services at Network for Good. To learn more about Network for Good, visit networkforgood.com. Up next, we will hear from YPTC's own Geraldine Dressler in our Ask the Controller segment, featuring YPTC Manager Glenn Devenish.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Controller. Our guest, Glenn Devenish, is a manager in our Washington, D.C. office who manages our client work with Network for Good. Glenn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Geraldine. I'm very excited.
Kimberly talked about the importance of technology and nonprofits achieving their mission, so we're going to focus on that today. YPTC was actually quite instrumental in helping Network for Good connect their platform to QuickBooks Online. Can you tell us a little about what the need was and then what the solution was?
Yeah, sure. As you heard Kimberly talk about it, there's essentially two entities under Network for Good. One is the for-profit and the other side is the nonprofit or the .org. And that's where we started our work. We brought in our associate, Larry Kaplan, who was very experienced with their accounting software. And he focused on various projects and working on those. And then subsequently, the for-profit side of the organization, they were needing assistance on a project to integrate their donor management software with QuickBooks Online. So they reached out to us, and because Larry was already working there, we paired him with another associate to help them with that effort. And their focus is really on answering questions, providing them guidance and direction from the accounting and finance side. And at one point, we even brought over a panel of associates to, again, answer questions and provide them with best practices. So as you would expect, it ended up being a success. And transferring the data today from the donor platform over to QuickBooks Online is really as simple as clicking a button.
Yes, and that's what we expect these days as users of technology, right? That it should be as simple. So that's great that YPTC was able to help Network for Good do that with a huge benefit to their nonprofit clients.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of tech more broadly, how are you seeing technology adoption play out at your clients?
Yeah, so with the pandemic, that pushed organizations, in this direction, right? There's going to be a high percentage of clients that are performing their accounting and finance functions, if not completely, then mostly in a virtual environment. Certainly the tools are getting better, and those are continuing to improve. But there's three areas that really benefit from a virtual environment. First area is going to be accessibility. The second one's going to be efficiency, and the third, security. Accessibility, that's pretty straightforward. It's self-explanatory. You can access your software, your documents, your information from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. With efficiency, that's going to be heightened as well. The best example of this is a bill payment system, something like a bill.com. Gone is the need to send a physical check to somebody for them to physically sign the check. You can have multiple approvers anywhere in the world approving these payments. Heck, they could even be sitting on their couch and approving these payments because you've eliminated those physical barriers.
No need to chase board members around town for signatures anymore, right?
No, that's completely out of the picture with this arrangement. And of course there's a cost to this, but people forget that there's a cost to buying checks, to buying the envelopes, to buying the stamps, and ultimately just storing those documents for an indefinite period of time.
Right.
So finally, there's the security around this. You can set up your approvers and signers to mimic the check signing procedures. Those approvals provide not only controls, but they provide the documentation, and it can be stored virtually and electronically for everyone to access. And that creates a level of security, around the information within your organization. And obviously, when audit time rolls around, which it inevitably does, it's going to make it easier for your auditors, and ultimately, who doesn't want to make it easier for their auditors?
Yeah, it seems like the pandemic really brought to the forefront the imperative of adapting technology, to work smarter. And hopefully that is something that's here to stay, and it will be top of mind for nonprofits to, work smarter and not longer, to do all these behind the scenes activities to achieve their mission. So finally, what's the coolest thing that you've seen while working with Network for Good?
Yeah, so I think what's really cool is their platform, right? And their platform brings together the donor data, communications, fundraising, performance tracking, and ultimately the accounting all into one place. So I think what's really neat is that they've created basically a one-stop shop for small nonprofits.
Again, working smarter and not longer. All right. Thanks, Glenn. We appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Mission Business Podcast. We look forward to bringing you more stories of innovation and perseverance from nonprofits around the world. I want to thank the team at PWP Video for their guidance and assistance in the development and production of this podcast. They are a great partner for Media with a Mission, and you can find them at pwpvideo.com. Additional information about this episode can be found at missionbusinesspod.com. And follow us on social media at Mission Business Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. A very special thank you to our guests on this episode, Kimberly O'Donnell from Network for Good and Glenn Devenish, manager at YPTC. I'd also like to thank the team from Network for Good for all of their input and support. This podcast was produced by Erica Blair and Geraldine Dressler of Your Part-Time Controller, LLC. Dave Winston and Michael Schweisheimer are the producers from PWP Video, and the show was directed and edited by Pat Ganley. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Alleva, Managing Partner at Your Part-Time Controller, LLC, and we'll see you next time here on Mission Business Podcast.